It's time to continue the Cursed City Heroes painting projects with Qualthis the Exile. Alright, so I'm pretty sure I got the name pronunciation incorrect, but I'm gonna be honest, that's the best I can do. This is one of the heroes from the Cursed City box set. I picked it up a while ago and just haven't really gotten around to painting the rest of the models, so today we're gonna continue that and paint this one up. I really like the sculpt. I added some basing media to the bottom, and let's go ahead and get started. We're going to start with some Aethermatic Blue from Citadel. I'm going to put this across what would be like the breastplate or the upper part of the tunic. The model doesn't seem to have all that much armor, but I kind of want to give the appearance that there might be some kind of like armored clothing. So I'm going to do 2 or 3 coats of this across a couple of different sections of the video, just to kind of give a nice base coating. And now I'm going to use some Basilicanum Gray. This is going to be for any of the armored sections and anything that looks like it's going to be metal or stone. Now there's not a whole lot of that on the piece, so it's mostly going to be these large rocks on the base, and there's a couple of scale armor sections on the front of the model. While that's drying, I'm going to grab some Ienden Yellow, and this is going to go over all of her hair. Now this will give a nice kind of base coat and just kind of fill in a little bit of the shadows. Now I am going to go over this again with a different color in another few steps, just to kind of add a little bit of extra shadow and definition. Now I'm going to use some snakebite leather, and this is going to go over a few sections of the model. She's got these kind of like bracers, almost gloves, and then there's some, sections like the boots and the quiver and the scabbard. Now I'm trying not to go too heavy with this because I want to preserve some of the finer details that are imparted in these areas. And I did make a mistake with this one hand, so using a wet brush with no paint, I very carefully remove the snakebite leather from her hand, just so that I can kind of touch that up a little bit later. Now using some Skeleton Horde, I'm going to go over the horns on her headdress here. This is going to be a nice kind of pale bone color once it's done. Now there's not a whole lot of other sections of the model that get bone color, but there is this skull on the base, so I'm just going to quickly touch that up. Alright, so now I'm going to use some Briar Queen Chill, and this is just going to go over the leggings. I wanted a nice kind of light blue, and I think this color is really nice for that effect. Now using some Wildwood, I'm going to go over the arrow shaft and the bow. And then taking great care not to spill over onto other sections, I'll also paint the arrows in the quiver. Now I'm going to use some Nazdrag Yellow to go over all of her hair again. This will kind of darken some of the shadowed areas, but also tinge the hair a slightly different color, kind of giving it a almost sandy blonde appearance. Now using a little bit of Warp Lightning, I'm going to go over the back of her lower tunic. This has a whole lot of nice defined texture, and I think this color is a really nice sharp green. And this is going to kind of give the appearance of like almost a woodland cloak. And I can also use it to paint up all of the fletching on the arrows. Alright, so now I'm going to use some Guilliman flesh and paint over all of the skin areas. Now the camera was a little bit out of focus, so I'm just kind of going to show you the finished result here. Now going back to the Nazdrag yellow, I'm going to go over all of the little fur tufts coming off of her cloak and her boots. And she's also got these kind of fur patches on her shoulders, so I'm going to touch those up with this as well. Now this is going to be a base color for the fur patches. I'm going to go over it again with another color, just to kind of change things up but still keep this as kind of an undercoat. Now while that paint is still wet, I'm going to just kind of dab on some Gryph-hound orange. This will cause the colors to blend a little instead of just layering on top of each other. It gives a subtle difference to the Gryph-hound orange, and it's a really nice color once it dries. Now I'm going to go back to the snakebite leather and just touch up a few areas, adding a little bit of highlights. There's just a couple of areas on the model that I thought would look better as this color as opposed to anything else. Just a few areas like the inside of the cloak and sections of the belt. Now using some silver from Artist Loft, I'm going to hit up any of the little metal fastenings on her clothing and armor sections. And I'm also going to use it to highlight the edges of the scale mail in the front of her tunic. And if I can ever get my camera back into focus, there we go. I'm also going to use it to touch up the edges of the quiver and the sword sheath. Now I'm also going to touch it up on the front of the bow, just these little metal armored sections. Now I'm going to paint over these areas with another color, but the silver will give it a nice shiny undercoat that will show through with the contrast paints. And here I'm just very carefully tracing a line down the center of the scales on the armor, and then doing a quick edge highlight, just to give it a little bit of extra definition. Now using some burnt umber from Artist Loft, I'm going to touch up all of the areas on the base. Now this is going to give it a kind of dirt and mud appearance, which is kind of what I'm going for with all of the media that I've put onto the base. And my apologies, but my camera seems to have some issues focusing right now, and it doesn't help that I keep moving my hands out of frame. Alright, while that's drying, I'm going to grab some old gold, and this is also from Artist Loft. It's a very, very pale kind of goldish color. It goes on very, very thin though. But putting it over the silver on the edge of the bow gives a really nice kind of light goldish tinge to everything. It's subtle, but it looks really neat. Now using a little bit of copper, I'm going to pick out just a few little highlights on the fastenings and mostly these sections on the belt here. It just gives a little bit of extra pop of color. And there's this little charm on the back of her hair that I'm also going to touch up with it. It won't be noticed that much, but when it is noticed, it really kind of stands out. Now using a little bit of raw sienna, I'm going to do a dry brush of the base and all of the stonework. This will give everything a nice kind of dirt and sand appearance. Now using a little bit of neutral gray, I'm going to do another dry brush on the base, and this is just going to pick out a few of the raised areas and to kind of give it the appearance of light hitting the top of the various bits of dirt. And then using a smaller brush, I'm also going to do a dry brush on all of the fur tufts. This will give it a kind of aged and weathered appearance. But as you can see, when it comes back into focus, we still keep all of those nice dark recessed areas. Now using a little bit of Qulathis green shade, I'm going to go over the warp lightning. This will just kind of darken everything up a little bit and give a little bit more of a green tinge to the recessed areas. And you can see it really just kind of makes all of those textures come right out. Now using a little bit of Athonian camo shade, I'm going to go over all of the leather. This will tinge it just a little bit green, kind of giving the appearance of woodland themed leather. And I can also go over all of the silver just to give it a little bit of a greenish tint. And I'll finish it up by going over all of the belt and embellishments. Now using a little bit of glossy Nuln oil, I go over all of the scales and metal bits for the model. Now using a little bit of Agrax Earthshade, I'm going to go back over a few areas, like the little tufts of fur, just to kind of darken any of the areas that I might have missed. That's looking pretty good. And then I'm going to finish off the base by doing a light coating of the earth shade over the stones, but not on any of the sand. And then to bring back all of the highlights for the stonework, I go over it once again with just a light dry brush of the neutral gray. This will bring back all of the highlighted raised areas, but keep some really dark recesses. Alright, that is looking pretty good. Off camera, I'll paint the rim of the base black, but this model is finished. Alright, so here we go. I've kind of set her up in my little tavern here. I think the model looks great. She'll really look good on the tabletop, and definitely kind of fits the theme of a elven woodland archer. Alright, that is going to be it for today. Thank you everyone for watching. Please hit that like button, subscribe for future content, comment down in the comments section, and we will see everyone next episode.